22%. That's the one-day pop in Quantinuum's stock price this week, and it isn't hype. It's an earnings beat stacked on top of a partnership with one of the most conservative buyers in enterprise tech. Today on Quickly Quantum, does landing Oracle as a customer prove that renting a quantum computer through the cloud is actually the business model that wins? Before that, in the headlines, two hardware companies posted record quarters in the same week. A Nature physics paper claims a real dent in one of quantum computing's oldest bottlenecks, and New York State just put $60 million on the table for anyone who can turn quantum research into an actual company. Welcome back to Quickly Quantum, your daily brief on the quantum frontier. It's Friday, August 14, 2026. Let's get into it. Let's start with the money because there's a lot of it moving this week. Infleqtion, the neutral atom quantum computing and sensing company, just posted record second quarter revenue of $12.63 million, up 116% year over year, and the growth was entirely organic, no acquisitions padding the number. That pushed full year guidance up to about $43 million. There's a bigger prize in the wings too. The Commerce Department issued Infleqtion a letter of intent for up to $100 million in CHIPS Act funding to accelerate its neutral atom roadmap, with the government potentially taking common stock in return. Now, the flip side, the company's operating loss nearly tripled to $30.6 million, and a chunk of this quarter's cash cushion, $27.4 million, came from a temporary payroll tax benefit that reverses next quarter. Still, with $582 million in the bank and zero debt, Infleqtion isn't going anywhere soon. That makes two quantum hardware companies, Infleqtion and Quantinuum, which we're getting to, both posting record commercial numbers in the very same week. Over in the research world, there's a genuinely interesting theory paper worth flagging. Researchers from Caltech and Berkeley, Jian Ding, Yongtao Zhan, and Lin Lin, working with physicist John Preskill, published a peer-reviewed paper in Nature Physics tackling state preparation, the process of getting a quantum computer into a specific starting configuration, like a thermal or ground state, before you can run useful chemistry or materials science calculations on it. That step is usually computationally brutal. The paper lays out algorithms with proven efficiency guarantees for an important class of models, and the authors frame the result as ready to run on near-term devices, not some far-future architecture. John posted on X that the team believes this could become one of the most promising algorithms to become an early killer application of quantum computing. Worth the skepticism, though. Efficiency guarantees for one class of model isn't a general-purpose speedup, and nobody's demonstrated this at meaningful scale on real hardware yet. But state prep has been a genuine bottleneck for years, so a peer-reviewed dent in it is worth your attention, even if you'll never touch a quantum computer yourself. Diraq, the silicon spin qubit company, is picking a fight with quantum computing's hiring model. The company argues the field will need roughly 840,000 workers by 2035, up from about 16,500 today, and that a pipeline built almost entirely around PhDs simply can't close that gap, especially with AI, biotech, and semiconductors all fishing in the same physics and engineering talent pool. Their proposed fix? Pull more from undergraduate engineering programs like UNSW Sydney's Bachelor of Quantum Engineering and reserve doctoral-level talent for the genuinely hard stuff, like designing error correction codes and qubit architectures. One of the company's own hires, test engineer Alex Dickey, who came in with just an undergraduate degree, put it plainly on Diraq's X account. You can do a lot of engineering in quantum computing that doesn't require a PhD. Fair point, though it's worth remembering that 840,000 figure comes from Diraq's own blog post, not an independent labor study, and the company has an obvious stake in that pipeline argument. There's a new quantum classical testbed coming to Pittsburgh called Tangle Lab, backed by $5 million from the National Science Foundation. The Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center, HPE, Rigetti Computing, and the University of Pittsburgh are teaming up to bolt a Rigetti Novera quantum processor onto HPE's classical supercomputing hardware. The goal, according to PSC's Bruno Abreu, is integrating quantum technologies into classical high-performance computing environments to enable workflows that can, in his words, demonstrate quantum utility. It's a small deal next to today's Oracle Quantinuum headline, but it's the same pattern showing up one size down, pairing quantum chips with classical supercomputers rather than trying to make quantum stand alone. This one comes to us from Quantum Zeitgeist, and we haven't independently confirmed it yet. But the shape of the deal, quantum classical integration funded by federal grant money, fits exactly what's happening at the flagship level this week too. New York State wants to turn quantum lab research into actual companies, and it just opened a request for proposals worth up to $60 million to make that happen. Empire State Development, through its NYSTAR division, is looking to fund up to 4 regional hubs, non-profit-run facilities with shared lab space, equipment, and startup incubation, with each award expected to land around $15 million. Only one hub gets picked per economic development region, and the money's restricted to capital costs like construction, renovation, and equipment, not salaries or overhead. Empire State Development's own account on X called it building the future of quantum technology, while the trade outlet HPC Wire simply flagged the RFP to its followers. It's part of a broader pattern of states racing to plant a flag in quantum before the commercialization wave crests. The real test won't be the paperwork. It'll be whether these hubs actually spin out startups and jobs, or just ribbon cuttings. New York's betting $60 million it's the former. And now for a story from a corner of the internet that doesn't usually cross paths with this show: crypto. A widely shared X thread claims TRON has activated 2 NIST-standardized post-quantum signature schemes, Falcon 512 and MLDSA-44, on its Nile testnet, positioning itself to be the first major public blockchain with quantum-resistant signatures live on mainnet. TRON's official account backed the general thrust, posting that its continued progress on post-quantum security is strengthening the ecosystem's infrastructure. I'd hold the caveats close here. This is a testnet, not mainnet. The claim is relayed through a single detailed thread rather than TRON's own technical documentation, and we haven't independently confirmed it. But it plugs into a real pattern we've been tracking all week. Organizations across finance and crypto racing to get ahead of post-quantum migration deadlines before any quantum computer can actually threaten their cryptography. That race is real even when individual claims about it need a grain of salt. Our main story today: the quantum as a service test. Whether renting quantum hardware through a hyperscaler's cloud the way you already rent storage or GPUs can actually turn into real revenue instead of just a headline. Quantinuum reported its first earnings as a public company this week, and it landed with a thud you could hear across the sector. Revenue came in at $8 million for the quarter, up 279% year over year, and that beat alone would have been a decent story. But the second part is the headline: a multi-year partnership with Oracle that will put one of Quantinuum's Helios quantum computers physically inside an Oracle Cloud Infrastructure data center, with Oracle planning to preview a native OCI quantum service built on top of it. On the back of that deal, Quantinuum raised its 2026 bookings guidance, the value of contracts signed, though not yet recognized as revenue, to at least $120 million. Investors didn't wait around to think it over. The stock jumped roughly 22% in a single session, its biggest move since the company's June IPO. Quick reset for anyone catching up on the hardware itself. Helios is Quantinuum's flagship trapped ion quantum computer. Trapped ion meaning it holds individual charged atoms in place with electromagnetic fields and controls them with lasers, which tends to produce very clean, very accurate operations, if somewhat slower ones, compared to the superconducting chips IBM and Google build. The specs back that up: 98 physical qubits, a 2-qubit gate fidelity of 99.921%, meaning the basic 2-qubit operation the machine performs is accurate that often, and getting 3 nines deep into that number is genuinely hard, plus 48 logical qubits demonstrated, meaning 48 error-corrected, more reliable qubits built by combining many physical ones together to cancel out noise. This isn't Quantinuum's first appearance on this show. We flagged before that the company has a pattern of incrementally re-announcing milestones. Its topological anyone work, for instance, kept notching forward steps without fully answering whether it could scale past the 54-qubit range. The open question was always whether the lab work would translate into paying customers. Oracle is a very different kind of validation than another physics paper. It's one of the more conservative, margin-obsessed hyperscalers in the industry, deciding this was worth building into its cloud roadmap. Let's stack up the reactions, because this is the story people are actually arguing about. Wall Street's initial read leaned bullish. Analysts at Rosenblatt and TD Cowen both called the Oracle deal a major validation of Quantinuum's roadmap, framing the earnings as evidence the company has moved from pure research into what they're calling a genuine execution phase, no longer just a lab with a good story, but a vendor other companies are willing to build products on top of. On X, the quantum news curator at the Qubit Wire summarized it plainly. Quantinuum posted its first earnings as a public company. Q2 revenue up 279% year-over-year, plus a new deal to run its Helios quantum computer as a service on Oracle Cloud infrastructure. Here's where I want to slow down though, because two numbers in this report don't get nearly as much airtime as that 22% stock pop. First, that $120 million bookings figure is not revenue. Bookings are the value of signed contracts, money that's promised, not necessarily collected, since contracts can shift or get renegotiated. Actual revenue this quarter was $8 million. That's a real beat, but it's a very different scale than the guidance headline suggests. Second, Quantinuum's operating losses widened sharply to $555 million, largely driven by one-time stock compensation tied to the IPO. A one-off accounting artifact, not necessarily an ongoing burn rate, but still a big number sitting under a small revenue line. And neither Quantinuum nor Oracle has disclosed the actual dollar value of the partnership itself. So we genuinely don't know how big this deal is in real terms. Everyone's reacting to the announcement, not the contract. So how much does one hyperscaler deal actually settle? I think it proves something narrower and still important. That a hyperscaler with a reputation for due diligence looked at Quantinuum's hardware and decided it was worth building a native service around, which is a different kind of validation than a government grant or an academic partnership. That matters for IBM, which runs its own cloud quantum access model and needs this bet to pay off. It matters for AWS's Bracket and Google's cloud quantum offerings, both of which just watched a competitor's headline numbers move because of a hyperscaler tie-up. And it matters for IonQ, which is chasing enterprise deals of its own and just watched a rival get there first with one of the biggest names in cloud. But I'm not ready to call this the moment quantum as a service definitively won. One deal, undisclosed economics, and a bookings number that's really a promise rather than a payment. That's a strong data point, not a verdict. The real test comes when Oracle's native OCI quantum service actually launches, and we find out whether enterprise customers pay to use it or whether this stays a marquee logo on a slide deck. Time for the hype check. I'm putting this one at a 6. The earnings beat is real, the fidelity numbers are real, and getting Oracle's name on a multi-year deal is a legitimately strong signal. But the guidance headline is doing a lot of work for a number that isn't revenue yet. And undisclosed deal economics on both sides means we're all grading the announcement, not the contract. If this week teaches you anything, it's that the assumption worth retiring is that hyperscaler cloud deals are just marketing dressed up for quantum companies. Oracle just showed one can move an earnings report and a stock price in the same afternoon. If you want the next chapter, whether that OCI quantum service actually ships and who ends up paying for it, follow Quickly Quantum wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss it. This has been Quickly Quantum, an AI-voiced podcast, created and built by a real human using today's cutting-edge technology. Nothing you heard on this show is financial advice. I'm Brian Lampert, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Take care.